add to today's meeting a resolution of condolences for the late State Representative and Chairman of the Augusta Legislative Delegation, Mr. Henry Wayne Howard.
Yes, we can adopt that without any objection, correct?
To be added.
To be added to the agenda.
Thank you.
None. Ms. Bonner?
Yes, sir. Call your attention to our invocation portion of our agenda, which will be delivered today by Reverend Chuck Smallwood, pastor of the Fairview Missionary Baptist Church. After which we would like to ask Ms. Monique Braswell if she would please stand and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you please stand? Thank you. Who is?
Thank you. May we all bow our heads in prayer. Father, we do thank you for your grace and mercy. Dear God, now as we come this afternoon, we pause to praise you for your goodness and your mercy. Thank you, dear God, for your amazing power and work in our lives. We pray now, God, that your word would continually instill in us through our spirit by your power, that your word would mold us continually according to your will. And dear God, as we need you in everything, we ask right now for your presence at this very moment. We pray, dear God, for this great commission. We pray, dear God, that this leadership would be conduits, those that would establish your will in every aspect of our city. God, that they would establish prosperity for our city, governance and leadership for our city. Lord, we thank you for all things. We thank you for Jesus. We thank you for the power that you rule in our lives. Bless us now. Bless this great commission and bless this meeting. Father, it's in Jesus' name we ask it all. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Reverend Smallwood, before you leave, could you come forward, please? We'd like to appropriately thank you for coming with us today. It's always a delight to have ecclesiastical prayers, and that was a great one. Thank you. One that I'm surely heaven heard on our behalf. Thank you. And we thank you for your prayer of wisdom, unity, and divine protection. Thank you so much. By these presents be it known that Chuck Smallwood, pastor of the Fairview Missionary Baptist Church, is our chaplain of the day. May his spiritual guidance and civic leadership serves as an example for all citizens of Augusta. Given under my hand this 18th day of October, 2022, Hardy Davis Jr., Mayor. Thank you so much. And in recognition of your first visit with us, I think we want to pin you with the City of Augusta pin, officially welcoming you to our humble abode. Ready, sir? Okay. Call your attention to the recognition portion of our agenda. The Supreme Court of Georgia hereby presents the Augusta Richmond County Commission with a certificate of appreciation for making the court special oral argument session in Augusta Judicial Circuit a success. And as we receive this recognition from the Supreme Court of Georgia, we would like to also share honorable mentions of our gratitude to our staff, mainly the Central Services Department here in the municipal building, Mr. Albert Livingston, Roger Kimball, and Mr. Robert Garrett. Also, our information technology gurus, Mr. Jeff Lewis and Mr. Darius Hughley. Finally, our Marshal's Office, especially Lieutenant Douglas, for their assistance during our preparations for the court's visit. Thank you. Next, our delegation portion of the agenda. Ms. Monique Braswell to discuss her annual feast before feast dinner in partnership with Augusta Parks and Recreation Department.
Ms. Braswell?
Right here?
Yes, ma'am. But I need you to state your name and you have 5 minutes.
Monique Braswell,
And your address.
5117 Devon Lane, District 5.
Okay.
Hello, commissioners, public. Is Parks and Recreation here? Is Maurice here? Last year, the Parks and Rec director came to me and he said, how can we bring the community back into the community centers? And we got together and we went back into I ain't finna do this by myself. We got together and we went back and did an old program that some of you all are very familiar with. We talked about feeding the community the week before Thanksgiving. But this year we're coming back again. It's gonna be bigger and it's gonna be better. At one time this program fed around 7,000 people. Last year we fed about 700 people. The goal is to feed at least 3,000 plus. There's so many homeless people out there. There's so many hungry people out there during this time of the year. So, how you all the way over there? We partners. Come on. Parks and Rec don't really get into a partnership with someone like this. And it is such an honor to have them as a partner this year. The flyer you all see up there is just a rough draft where you will see it that says Braswell Manigault Foundation, Augusta Parks and Rec partnerships. We're looking for sponsors. We need turkeys. We need hams. We give you everything that's on your table is what we give you. Turkey, ham, chicken, macaroni, cheese, potato salad, greens, string beans, you name it, we do it. And we do it all for the communities. We're going to be in the McBean Community Center. Last year was the first time they ever had anything like that. We're going to be at McDuffie Woods, Carrie J. Mays, and we're going to close Brigham out with this type of an event. I'm asking all of you commissioners on the dais to please be a huge sponsor. Y'all know that means money, hams, turkeys, whatever you can, and help us out here. Y'all always want the community to come back. This is a way to get started. We have lots of volunteers. Everybody wants to serve food, but don't nobody want to help give up none. Okay? So as the leaders of our community, I'm coming to you all first. As a person living in the community, I'm asking you all if anyone can help us make this happen. We just want to help people. And with this partnership right here, I feel that we're going to go a long ways in getting the word out to the people and letting people know that you are really are here for them. They already know I'm here for them. But we want them now to believe that you all are really here for them. It doesn't matter what district, what color. We just want to serve the people. And I'm happy to be able to serve it with you.
Always.
So who got the first check?
Thank you for coming to share that with us. We will be in touch with any comments or questions.
And I am a 501c3.
Okay,
So your dollars are tax deductible.
okay. But you know I'll see you, and I'm sure some other commissioners will see you as well. All right, thank you, ma'am.
Our next delegation, item C, Mr. Roderick Pearson and Mr. Jason Beard, regarding concerns about the violence in the almond community.
Before you get started, we need your name and your address.
Okay, my name is Rod Pearson. My address is 3448 Heather Drive, Augusta, Georgia. Okay?
And you have 5 minutes, sir.
Yes. We have a video we'd like to play first. I want you to take a look at the video and take a look at a couple of faces. You may be familiar with the gentleman leaning on the car and the gentleman passing out the cars. I want you to take a look at their body language as they interact with these two gentlemen. Okay? This is all in regards to the controversy relating to the observation tower located on Riceboro Road, okay, outside of Fox Den, okay? All right. Good afternoon. All right. As a member of the Almond Heights community, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak regarding our concerns related to the shootings and killings in our district. These acts of violence have been an issue for us approximately 5 to 6 years. We have been working proactively with local governmental agencies long before the killings began. We saw the change in the culture after the closing of housing projects throughout Augusta. What we are seeing now in the Upper Riceboro area can be titled dissemination without preparation. When the troubled residents were displaced from their homes, they brought their norms and their culture with them. Our District 3 Commissioner, Catherine McKnight, and Super District Commissioner, John Clark, have been doing everything possible to restore our peace. They are working with our community and the owner of Fox Den Apartments to bring back a sense of calmness and peace. Our peace means everything to us. The owner of Fox Den has spent over $1 million to upgrade security and in their as well as their apartments, to upgrade security and their apartments. Almost 2 weeks ago, a 17-year-old laid in the street dead at Smart Grocery on Riceboro Road. Smart Grocery is the place where our black boys have frequently been shot or died to street violence. Smart Grocery is an understood haven for killings, laundering, and other transactions. The previous district attorney required Smart Grocery to have paid security, but that ended after the change in administration. But the new administration has been well advised since their inception. The owner of Fox Den, Oxford Glen, and Alpine Villa went to the extent of purchasing an observation unit as a means of providing additional security and coverage to protect residents, to serve as a deterrent to crime, and to produce a safe environment. The owner placed a sign on the unit thanking Commissioners McKnight and Clark for their support. The owner did not want to see another bloody body of a child laying in the street. The owner was very much aware of the sheriff department in terms of their low numbers. So he wanted to do his part. He knew that Augusta was experiencing a record number of murders, so he wanted to help. The owner said no more. So he installed this observation unit. The owner has also stated he is afraid of losing his own life. Then came the controversy. 2 out-of-jurisdiction commissioners came to the district, called the media, and code enforcement. Other commissioners voiced their complaints to Catherine McKnight. Not all, but too many. Alleged that the observation unit looked like a deer stand. We haven't seen any dead deer, just dead people. The thank you sign was just a means of just recognizing their work. After the observation unit was removed, Fox Den had 3 separate shootings last weekend. Luckily, no one was killed. The neighbors feel that the commissioners saw the observation unit as a nuisance, which simply gave the bad guys a false sense of power. We got your back. I don't know why they're doing this to you. Whether this message was conveyed verbally or non-verbally, you can reclaim your turf. All right? That's what we're hearing as members of the community. You just continue handling your business. The observation unit was not a nuisance to the citizens and taxpayers. All right? They were enthusiastic about the efforts of the owner, spending over $1 million to improve quality of life for good people trying to rear their children in a community that was once peaceful.
Mr. Pearson, your 5 minutes are up, sir.
Are you serious?
Yes, sir. Actually, I gave you an extra minute. You had 6.
All right. But can I close?
Make it brief.
Mm-hmm. What we're asking is that the grocery store, we feel like the grocery store is basically turning their cheek to the killings. We need for you to take their license, their alcohol license, and fine them give them a fine when they're loitering. In the effort to deter future killings, Smart Grocery should be required to have full-time security during hours of operation. And a final note, in the absence of the mayor, Mr. Mayor Pro Temp, the sheriff department cannot fix these problems alone. This is a systemic problem. Someone needs to tell Jordan Johnson to clean up the blood in his own house before he goes knocking on someone else's front door.
All right. Any questions from anybody?
No, but I have a comment, Mr. Chairman.
All right, hang on a second.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to be brief, Mr. Chairman, because we have other business to handle. I've heard this from Mr. Pearson in the media and in other places.
We are talking about the killings, right?
Hang on a second.
You've had your 6 minutes,
Hang
Mr.
on a
Pearson.
second, sir.
Thank you, sir. I have the time.
Go ahead.
What disturbs me the most here is that the entire conversation around this deer blind, I'm glad we're having it, because I purpose to not speak on it publicly, right? From the commission or from social media, because at this time, things have been handled. But as a black male, growing up in East Augusta, growing up in Dogwood Terrace, I've seen dead bodies in the street more than I would like to have seen dead bodies in the street. I know what it looks like.
It's your norm.
I've seen it, right? But I also know that as a black male, seeing a hunting stand-like structure in front of a black neighborhood, regardless if there's crime or not, in my mind does not give the right answer. Now, I have no opinion on that. But what I will tell you is that the facts around this conversation are just simply not true. Now, what I will say is you mentioned for Jordan Johnson to clean the blood off of his streets. We do that by way of making sure that we're on the ground in these public housing facilities, that we're passing legislation up here, like the Stepping Up initiative that we passed last year unanimously to make sure that folks are not incarcerated for having mental health issues, but they get the treatment that they need. We do that by making sure that the homeless task force is stood up and that they're doing their job. We do that by making sure that Parks and Recreation have the resources that they need to turn the community centers back over to the community and not just be so antagonistic and call for the firing of the director because we don't like their politics. You don't solve issues by pandering to people's fear. Because when I went out to Fox Den after another commissioner, and because I'm not a petty individual, I'm not going to say who that commissioner was.
Deaths
because
are
Mr.
petty.
Pearson, I have the time.
Deaths are
Okay.
not petty.
Mr. Pearson.
Yes, sir.
I need you to take a seat.
Thank
gonna
you,
wrap
sir.
up.
Mr. Johnson.
All right.
I'm going to wrap up,
This
sir.
gentleman
Yes, sir.
has 20
Hang,
murders.
hang on a second,
in
Mr.
his
Pearson. Thank you.
I'm going to.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Pearson, have a seat, sir.
Can I wrap up my last statement, Mr. Chairman? I'm going to
Hurry
leave it
up,
alone.
sir.
The last comment that I like to make is that if we're going to solve this issue of crime in our communities, which I've been very vocal about, it's going to take a community effort, right? And in that regard, Mr. Chairman, I thank you for your time. I did not call code enforcement.
All right, thank you. Conversation is over.
Good
Thank
idea.
you. Thank you.
Call your attention to our consent agenda, which consists of items 1 through 27. Items 1 through 27. For the benefit of any objectors to our planning petitions, would you please signify your objection by raising your hand once the petition is read? Call your attention to item number 3. It's a request for a special exception for an adult daycare facility located at 1840 Finney Road. Item number 4 is a request for a rezoning from a zone R1C, one-family residential, to a zone R2, two-family residential, affecting property at 1612, 1614, and 1616 Lucky Street. Item number 5 is a request for rezoning from a Zone A agriculture to a Zone B2 general business, affecting property located at 1125 and 1145 Interstate Parkway. Item number 6 is a request for rezoning from a Zone R1, one-family residential, to a Zone B1 neighborhood business, affecting property located at 135 Davis Road. Item number 7 is a request for rezoning from a Zone B1 neighborhood business and a Zone light industry to a Zone B2 general business, affecting property located at 1602 Gordon Highway. Are there any objectors to any of the planning petitions as read? Okay. If there are any objectors to our alcohol petitions, once those petitions are read, would you please signify your objection by raising your hand? Call your attention to item number 9. It's a request for an on-premise consumption, liquor, beer, and wine to be used in connection with the location at 813 Broad Street. Item number 10 is a request for a retail package beer and wine license to be used in connection with the location at 2849 Lumpkin Road. Item number 11 is a request for a retail package beer and wine license to be used in connection with the location at 2078 Old Savannah Road. Are there any objectors to the alcohol petitions as read? Mr. Mayor and Pro Tem and members of the commission, our consent agenda consists of items 1 through 27 with no objectors to our planning or alcohol petitions.
All righty. Do we have, we're consent agenda? It's okay.
We have a consent, yes, sir.
All right, Mr. Hassan.
Yes, I'd like to pull item number 21, please.
Item 21. Mr. Garrett?
I'd like to pull item 16, please.
Yes, sir. Mr. Dennis Williams?
I was looking at item 16 to pull, which I already done.
Okay, so we got 16 and 21. Any other items to pull? Are we gonna add anything to the agenda? Which one?
Make a motion to approve with the two agenda items pulled, discussed, 16
Second.
and 21.
All right. 16 and 21, Ms. Bonner.
Yes, sir. Are
Voting?
we voting?
All right, voting.
Mr. Son? It's unanimous with Mr. Alvin Mason absent from today's meeting.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Ms. Bonner, can we start with 21? Or do you have anything else? Do you have anything else that we need to do?
Well, we'll take it at the regular portion of the agenda.
Okay.
The resolution of condolences?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You want to do that now?
Yes,
Or-
ma'am.
Okay. Resolution of condolences. Whereas the Georgia State Representative Henry Wayne Howard was born on September 1st, 1955, to the late State Representative Henry L. and the late Thelma Howard. In 1984, he married Cassandra B. Howard, and they were blessed with three children, 2 sons and 1 grandchild. Whereas Representative Howard received his early education at the Ursula School of Collins, School the Era Johnson Junior High, and graduated from the Lucy C. Laney High School in 1973. He also attended Augusta College, now known as Augusta University. And whereas in 1977, he emerged as the sole owner-operator of the men's retail business and was named Businessman of the Year by the CSRA Business League. In 1986, he ventured into another family business called Uniformals Unlimited. The business was operated and opened in the family's headquarters building on Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. The Howard family business eventually diversified between furniture, event promotions, parade of quartets, production, retail, politics, and whereas Representative Howard's political career began in 1970s when he actively involved in working for his father, a representative of District 121. He later ran and was elected to serve as state representative of Districts 121 and 124 since 2007, and served as chairman of the Augusta Legislative Delegation. And whereas Representative Howard was a member of the historic Tabernacle Baptist Church and was a member of the C.S. Hamilton Male Chorus and the Sanctuary Choir. He was previously a member of the Green Grove Missionary Baptist Church from 1965 to 2000, where he was ordained as a deacon, served as the chairman of the Trustee and Finance Ministries, was president of the Mass Choir, and worked closely with youth ministry under the leadership of Reverend Leslie Leonard. And whereas Representative Howard was a valued member of professional and civic affiliations, receiving an award for starting the Lucy Craft Laney High School mentoring program for at-risk youth. And whereas Representative Howard's hard-working ways will be sorely missed by all of us who knew and loved him. The members of the commission were deeply saddened to learn of his sudden passing. And therefore it be resolved that with our sincere care and concern, that we, the Augusta, Georgia Commission, send these humble words expressing our heartfelt sympathy. May you find comfort in knowing that others care and share your loss. Be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to the family and friends of Representative Howard this 18th day of October in the year of our Lord, 2022.
Yes, ma'am, and with that said, can we bow our heads for a moment of silence? Thank you. Okay. Okay. All right, so which way we need to go now, Ms. Palmer? Got anything else?
Yes, sir, where we're headed. Item 21, you said?
Item 21 first. Thank you, ma'am.
Item 21 is to approve ARP funds in the amount of $3 million for the purpose of 2022 and 2023 replacement fire apparatus and light vehicles, and additional funding for air light support units approved in 2022's budget.
Mr. Hassan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. I'd like to just appeal to my colleagues to, first, just for those of us, and I'd like to say for those who were absent last week, it was a phenomenal graduation that the fire department put on, and it was a wonderful opportunity to be there and to see what our new Chief Burden, is doing for this community, as he made known several times as late as last week as well, to remind us that the firefighters now that's coming out was the best firefighting class that's ever in the history of Augusta, Richmond County, because of the training that they've been introduced to. And so it was wonderful to see those 15 persons graduate, have family members from around the country that had came in to see them graduate. And I think now I'm hoping and praying that I can get my colleagues to at least consider making this $3 million to $4 million to give him some of the necessary tools he needs to work with. Now he has the best trained department he's coming along in terms of in the history of Augusta, Richmond County. And so because we know this ask was really $7 million. And we know he's not in the SPLOST 8 in the real serious way to get equipment. So with that being said, I'd like to make a motion to up to $3 million to $4 million for the fire department.
Second.
All right, got a motion and a second. Mr. Clark?
Thank you. Well, I appreciate Commissioner from the 6th up in the ante a little bit, but I'd like for everybody to bear in mind that this is money that was sent in by the federal government, and it's got to be used for specific purposes, and I think this purpose is absolutely specific as it gets. We're going to have to fund the equipment that we don't purchase out of this fund. We're going to have to fund it somehow in the very near future, whether it's going up on fire tax or any other kind of tax. We have to keep our fire department at the top of the rating system in order to keep the homeowner's insurance at the level that it is now. If the fire department uses their position, then the homeowner's insurance go up and you find yourself paying more. Now, I know that we're not going to be able to give them, or not going to give them the whole $7 million, but since Commissioner from the 6th, Hassan, was willing to compromise a slight bit, I'll drop down a little bit. I make a substitute motion that we fund the fire department for $5 million.
We did not get a second for that. Ms. Bonner,
Yes, sir.
let's vote on the original motion.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Hang on a second. Mr. Garrett?
Yes, sir, thank you. I was actually gonna make a substitute motion back to the original motion of $3 million.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for a substitute motion. Ms. Bonner, let's vote on the substitute motion.
Oh, that speaks volumes.
Hang on, we got a substitute motion. We got, Mr. Hassan has a 4 million, which is the original. The 3 million is the substitute motion. So we're voting on the substitute for 3 million.
Are we voting, sir?
Voting.
That motion fails 5-4, with Mr. Johnson voting yes, Mr. Bobby Williams, Mr. Sean Frenham, Mr. Brandon Garrett, and Ms. Francine Scott. Voting no, Mr. Dennis Williams, Ms. Catherine McKnight, Mr. Ben Hassan, and Mr. John Clark.
Voting on the original, Ms. Bonner.
Yes, sir. That motion fails 5-4.
Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry, Ms. Bonner.
For the record, thank you, sir. Ms. McKnight voting yes. Mr. Bobby Williams, Mr. Ben Hassan, Ms. Francine Scott. Voting no, Mr. Jordan Johnson, Mr. Sean Frenham, Mr. Brandon Garrett, and Mr. John Clark.
Mayor Pro Tem, I'd like to reconsider with the motion of 3.5.
All right. We got a second on that?
Yes.
All right, we got a second on that. Mr. Attorney. Yes, sir. Do we need to separate those? Do the reconsider first? Or can we reconsider and be voting on the 3.5 at the same time?
It depends on what the motion is.
She did a reconsideration, and she wants to make a motion of 3.5.
She's asking the board to reconsider and vote on a motion for 3.5.
Yes, sir.
That is the motion.
That is a motion. So if we get 6 votes, it is 3.5 then.
Yes, it would be.
All right. So let's vote, Ms. Bonner. Reconsideration, going for 3.5.
Mr. Hassan, Mr. Frenham, and Ms. Scott. That motion carries 6-3, with Mr. Johnson voting yes, Mr. Bobby Williams, Mr. Hassan, Mr. Frenham, Mr. Garrett, and Ms. Scott. Voting no, Mr. Dennis Williams, Ms. McKnight, and Mr. Clark.
All right. Thank you, thank you. Let's move to the real work. Let's go to 16, Ms. Bonner.
Item 16 is a motion to approve the following items regarding the Gold Cross contract. Number 1, remove the ORVs for Gold Cross. 2, set the terms of the contract for 3 years with 2 one-year renewal terms approved by the commission. 3, remove the 6 months for Gold Cross to come into compliance for the ambulance ORVs, with compliance to be from the first day of the contract. 4, remove the provisions of the Gold Cross to to remove the provision for Gold Cross to subcontract any part of this contract out. 5, pay for the subsidy on a monthly basis, starting the contract on January 1, 2023. And 6, and provide a subsidy of $900,000 to Gold Cross.
Mr. Garrett.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I pulled this item just because of when this was discussed last week in committee, many of the items that were added here were items that were added without the approval of the both sides of the contract. You know, there had already been contract negotiations, and really the only thing that they needed guidance on was the subsidy, which was my understanding. And so, to me, the idea that we were adding things after the contract negotiations had already taken place was a little bit counterintuitive to how typically these types of things take place. So I'm going to make a motion that we go back to the original contract that was presented by the administrator, which had already been approved by Gold Cross, with the subsidy of $1.5 million.
Second.
Mr. Hassan?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, to my colleagues, I think any contract that crosses this desk, this commission has authority to make any provisions or changes that it sees fit. And I didn't add anything. I modified what was already in the contract. That's what I really did here. Modified it, what was there, that I thought that most person that came in agreed to some degree, but it was not an absolute. We get the last say so, and I was taking full advantage of that. I think it's very right for the community. When you look at what's there, you can see it protects this government as well as protects Gold Cross in that regard. Nothing here is unusual. The subcontract work out never been done before. A 3-year contract, that's all it ever had. So those are the kind of things that all we did. We just modified it versus having a 10-year contract, because the contract says a 10-year contract. It don't say a 5-year, it says 10 years.
Right.
So we brought things back into compliance and what they was. And so I make a substitute motion that we pass the contract. We pass it based on what's here.
You got it. Second, Ms. Jordan.
Yes, sir.
All right, so we got a substitute motion to do what's here, Ms. Bonner. And then let's do that one, and then we can do the original from Mr. Garrett, which was to change it back to.
The original proposed contract.
Yes,
I withdraw.
With
I
their
withdraw
subsidy of
mine.
$1.5 million.
Yeah, hang on a second, you withdraw?
I would. Well, I'm sorry, but I got a second, so it's not mine any longer. I'm sorry.
So what do you want to do, sir?
No, we vote on it.
Okay, so let's vote on the substitute, which is this original motion.
What was on the screen?
Yes,
What's
ma'am.
on the agenda, item number 16?
Yes, ma'am.
Who seconded that motion? I didn't hear.
Mr. Jordan Johnson.
Ready? But don't you please going back and forth.
That motion fails 4-5, with Mr. Johnson voting yes, Mr. Bobby Williams, Mr. Ben Hassan, and Ms. Francine Scott. Voting no, Mr. Dennis Williams, Ms. Catherine McKnight, Mr. Sean Franham, Mr. Brandon Garrett, and Mr. John Clark.
Mr. Chairman, before we vote.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I still believe that Mr. Chairman, this to give a contract of $1.5 million is unconscionable in terms of we're talking about 2.5 times what they're currently getting, and we're getting a very poor quality of service. In many instances, I must admit, it may not be enough fault of their own because they may be on the wall, and I respect that. But at the same time, to give them something that we know they can't deliver does not make good sense for this government.
Okay, Mr. Hassan, let's vote on it first, please.
Yeah, I'm gonna own it.
No, we still need to vote on the original.
Mr. Garrett's motion and Ms. McKnight is to approve the original proposed contract with a subsidy of $1.5 million.
Exactly. Voting.
That motion fails 4-5, with Ms. McKnight voting yes, Mr. Sean Franham, Mr. Brandon Garrett, and Mr. John Clark. Voting no, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Dennis Williams, Mr. Bobby Williams, Mr. Ben Hassan, and Ms. Francine Scott.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mayor Pro
Ms.
Tem,
Scott.
I would like to reconsider and go with the motion that Commissioner Hassan with $1 million as the price.
Can we get a second on that? Second. All right, we got a second. So, Ms. Scott wants to do a reconsideration using what?
Well, yeah, okay.
She wants to do a reconsideration using Mr. Hanson's rhetoric and upping the supplement to $1 million instead of $900,000.
Let me just make sure that's what, put item 16. Yeah.
Can I get a point of clarity?
And that would be this motion with the monetary value to be $1 million?
Yes, ma'am.
Don't make sense.
Yes, ma'am. All right, let me go to Mr. Franham first.
This is for the attorney. I've never remembered us putting a reconsideration with a motion like this. Like, we had to reconsider it first, and you had unanimous consent to reconsider, then the vote, and now we're putting it together in a way, putting them together, and why are we doing that now? We've never done it in the past.
All you will have to do, Commissioner Franklin, as a member of the voting body, if you want reconsideration separate, is to object to her combining the motion.
I object to her combining the motion.
I'll second it.
You don't need a second.
I feel like we playing the Price is Right today.
Then the motion would be simply for reconsideration.
Okay. So we're going to do the reconsideration. So we need 6 votes to get that done, correct?
That would be correct.
All right, so let's just do the reconsideration. Are we voting, Ms. Bonner?
Motion to reconsideration.
We did the motion to reconsider.
Who made them?
Ms. Scott.
That was yours to reconsider?
Right.
Okay.
And Ms. Jordan, you did Mr. Jordan did the second.
Okay.
Mr. Jordan did
Okay.
the second, Ms. Bonner.
Okay, all right.
Okay. Mr. Garrett, you ready? You already voted.
No, you didn't. This is a motion to reconsider. Nobody's voted yet.
All right, let's go, Ms. Bonner. We're voting.
Okay. Mr. Hassan. Okay.
Mr. Hassan? All right.
That motion carries 6-3
All right, Ms. Scott, you can now make your motion.
with, let me just record these. Mr. Johnson voting yes, Mr. Dennis Williams, Mr. Bobby Williams, Mr. Ben Hassan, Mr. Brandon Garrett, Ms. Francine Scott. Voting no, Ms. McKnight, Mr. Franham, and Mr. Clark.
Okay?
Number 16, no? Is that what you?
Talking to the microphone.
Yes, number
Number
16
16.
back on.
Okay.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem, I'd like to make a motion with what's on the screen and provide a subsidy of $1 million.
Okay. And that's Mr. Hassan. And what's on the screen is a motion to approve the items to Gold Cross to remove the ORVs for Gold Cross, set terms of the contract for 3 years with 2 one-year renewals by the commission, remove the 6 months for Gold Cross to continue in compliance for ambulances, ORVs with compliance to be from the first day of the contract, remove the provision for Gold Cross to subcontract any part of this contract out, pay for the subsidy on a monthly basis, starting the contract on January 1st, 2023, and provide a subsidy of $1 million to Gold Cross.
You got
Mr.
second?
Chairman. Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes, yes, sir.
do you want to clarify that subsidy is an annual subsidy? It's not stated.
Annual subsidy. Yeah. Okay,
Annual, okay?
Mayor Pro Tem.
yes, sir. Hang on a second. Mr. Garrett?
So I appreciate that we're actually having this conversation up here of trying to find some middle ground, and I think that this is actually beneficial to, I think, where everybody, including our citizens, are wanting us to go. So I'm going to make a substitute motion that we remove number 1. And by the way, for the record, it's QRV, not ORV.
Hang on a second. Mr. Attorney?
Yes, sir.
This is Rika Sure. Can you make a substitute motion?
Yes, he can.
Okay, Mr. Garrett. Go ahead.
But make a motion to approve, remove number 1, change number 2 to, actually keep number 2, change number 3 to 3 months to come into compliance. Take out number 4 and provide a subsidy of $1.2 million.
I'll second that.
Hold up a second, hold up, baby. I'm laughing.
If y'all want to play, we'll play.
No, we need to get this,
No.
need to get this done. Who's up, Mr. Frana?
Yeah, I mean, it's like we're playing with Monopoly money up here, and we don't even have the other entity at the table. I think it's wrong that we're even going to continue this conversation. I'm voting no to everything. I've just decided because Gold Cross needs to. We don't know whether they accept or decline this, and if they don't accept it, then what does that mean for our citizens on the rates? So let's have a holistic conversation with Gold Cross in the room and ask them if. I mean, we've never had discussions like this for a contract in the middle of an open public forum. Obviously, it's past that. It seems like we're going there now, and frankly, we need to put them on 2 weeks on the whatever committee it rightly needs to be on, and if Gold Cross needs to be in the room, and let's ask them and hear from them on the why of why this wouldn't work or the why of why they say yes or no to some of these things, because at the end of the day, this is not just Augusta. This is a partnership with Gold Cross. So thank you.
Mr. Hassan?
Yes, sir. Well, 2 weeks ago, and a week prior, Gold Cross, they made a conscious decision not to show up. And they were able to be entertained and spoke on both occasions. If they're not here, that's by their own volition. It's not that we didn't defer to them and let them speak to it. I can tell you both occasions, one of the things that he said most notably was that during next year, I don't know what's Medicaid or Medicare, will be more favorable to them. At one point he was here. The last time he was here, he was standing here. He made, Stephen Vincent that is, I'm sorry. He made mention that, that there was not a, something that was not in the contract, and Ms. Dowse was able to find out that it was in the Columbia County's contract. So he has an opportunity. We have not barred them from being a part of this conversation. Obviously, they made a conscious decision not to be here. It has nothing to do with the city. Okay. Nothing to do with the city.
It's not entirely true.
Okay, hang on a second.
So
Mr. Hassan, I understand, but we got two motions. We got two motions, Ms. Bond, let's vote. Let's vote on
A substitute motion.
motion.
Mr. Garrett, Mr. Clark.
And then we'll vote on the original one. Yes, ma'am.
Mm-hmm. Are we voting?
Yes, ma'am, voting on the substitute.
That motion fails. 1 to 8.
Okay,
with Mr. Garrett voting yes.
good job, good job. Let's vote on the original, Ms. Bonner.
Okay. That motion fails 4-5.
All right. Let's move on, Ms. Bonner.
Okay, let me quickly make sure we got this. Okay. We're item number 28, sir.
That's a good one.
Okay. Item 28 is a request for concurrence to deny a petition by Beasley Development on behalf of the Georgia Baptist Children's Home, requesting a change of zoning from a Zone A agriculture and a Zone 1R1 one-family residential to a Zone R1D one-family residential affecting property located at 3630 Windsor Spring Road, 3047 Manchester Drive, and part of 3596 Windsor Spring Road.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Good afternoon. The applicant, Bill Beasley Homes, has reached out to the planning department, and they have asked for this application to be withdrawn and not considered today. They would ask that the full commission send the application back to the planning commission because they would like to continue to work through some of the access point issues.
Motion to send back to committee or
Planning commission.
planning commission. Motion to send back planning.
All right. We need to vote, Ms. Bonner.
Yes, sir.
Second.
We have one, Mr. Franum and Mr. Hassan, I believe.
All right, voting.
Mr. Garrett. Okay, thank you. It's unanimous.
All righty.
Item number 29, sir, is to approve new ownership existing location for a retail package beer and wine license to be used in connection with Lotto World, number 15 at 2502 Lumpkin Road. Ms. Walton, is your applicant? Oh, Ms. Delaney, you're handling that?
We're going to wait till they cleared the Cambridge community.
Get him on up to the podium.
All right. Good afternoon. We have a motion for new ownership of an existing location, alcohol application 22-73, a request by Deep Patel for retail package beer and wine license to be used in connection with Lotto World number 15 located at 2502 Lumpkin Road in District 5. Do we have anyone in the audience in objection to the application? Hearing none, applicant, could you please step forward, give your name and your home address?
Deep Patel, 646 Emerald Crossing, Evans, Georgia.
This application has been reviewed by the Planning and Development Department along with the Sheriff's Department, and we recommend approval.
Motion to approve.
Voting.
Mr. Clark?
I had
Are
a
you
question
thinking?
and the
Okay.
Mayor Pro Tem didn't acknowledge.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm sorry.
If I may, is this just going to be selling lotto tickets and beer and wine or what? I mean,
No, sir. So our family actually owns all the gas stations around town, and we try to keep everything pretty uniform. And we couldn't, we didn't want to name it Grocery World. So, and this is also a high volume lottery store. So that's why we just came up with the name Lotto World, so we wouldn't have to change our logo too much and our design too much.
Okay, thank you.
So vote yes.
It's unanimous. Item 30, sir. Update from Director Hawthorne Welcher regarding emergency assistance program requested by Commissioner Scott.
Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners. My name is Daniel Evans from the Housing Community Development Department, and I have Ms. Brittany Burnett, President and CEO of our partner agency, United Way of the CSRA, here to talk to you about our emergency rental assistance program today. So I'll let Ms. Burnett kick us off.
So as you may recall, we've come up here a couple of times and given you some updates about this program, where this is put in place for residents in Richmond County who are at risk of eviction because they are behind on their rent, and this also covers utilities assistance as well. So we started this program back in March of 2021, and I'll let Daniel give you an update about the dollars and how they've come into the community, and then we'll talk about the distribution to date.
Sure. So just to backtrack, get us all on track on the same page, Augusta, Georgia has been fortunate to receive 3 different allocations from the U.S. Treasury under both the CARES Act and the American Rescue Plan to support the Emergency Rental Assistance Program. As you see here, our first tranche, as we refer to them as, was afforded to Augusta, Georgia in the spring of last year in a total just over $6 million. And the program generally, as Ms. Burnett mentioned, is to serve residents of the Richmond County community who are at or below the 80% of area median income and have suffered some form of economic hardship as it related to the COVID-19 pandemic. Our original allocation of $6 million has already been fully expended. And we were awarded under the American Rescue Plan. Augusta, Georgia received an additional allocation of $7,114,000 with slightly different programmatic eligibilities. The condition was changed from an impact of COVID specifically to an economic hardship that related to the pandemic to allow for a little more liberal or general acceptability or eligibility for residents for the program. And it also saw to increase the available assistance. So whereas the original legislation allowed our community to provide up to 15 months of assistance with past due rent or utility bills, the ERA 2 legislation afforded the opportunity to provide an additional 3 months of assistance up to a maximum of 18, which could also include 3 months of what they call prospective rent. When we service a resident who has ongoing income issues or ongoing increased expense issues, we're able to pay forward essentially for up to 3 months of rent to help them stabilize as they come back to a more normal sense of their surroundings. Based on Augusta's performance in partnership with United Way of the CSRA during 2021, we were selected by the U.S. Department of Treasury to receive a reallocated award of those ERA 1 dollars. We were very fortunate in the mid part of this year to come before you and request your approval to accept those dollars on behalf of Augusta, Georgia. They came from the pot of ERA funds that were afforded to the state of Georgia through the Georgia Department of Community Affairs. And upon a receipt and approval of those reallocated dollars, we were aware that they had a much shorter shelf life as the legislation for CARES ran an expiration date of December 29th of this year. So we paused utilization on those ERA 2 dollars because we have up until 2025 to expend those to provide that rent and utility assistance. And we have for about half a year now been working through in partnership with United Way and our magistrate court partners to expend as much of the $12 million we can in advance of the December 29 expenditure deadline.
So we make this really easy for our residents to apply for assistance. So they can simply, as you see here, text the word rent to 50503, or they can go online to our website, or they can simply call 211. Any of those ways can help people actually fill out a very quick application, which puts them in a queue to then receive the assistance. So we are running this process in a very fair way, where we are processing the applications in the order in which we receive them. So going on any of these 3 ways to apply, go ahead, that will go ahead and get them in the queue. And then once we do get to their name, we have, as you see here, there's engagement from both the resident and from the landlord. So we get some documents from the resident. We also get documents from the landlord, including a ledger and, of course, W-9. And then we also do something that's really unique to our community, which is that we do a habitability inspection of the unit to make sure that it's a safe unit. If there are some corrections that need to be made, ultimately we want to make sure our residents are in safe and stable housing. And so if some of those corrections need to be made, we make sure that's in line to happen as well.
I'll just add to that real quick. I'm very pleased to say that one of the aspects of the partnership is our office at HCD handles those habitability concerns when they come up, either through the United Way process or through our partnership with the magistrate court. And none of the landlords that we've worked with have had to have their units referred to code enforcement. The deficiencies that have been identified have been addressed in a relatively timely manner for all of these units. So we were very concerned that we would see a different level of response from the landlords in our community, and I'm very proud to say that they have, as requested, made the necessary improvements to the property, as Ms. Burnett said, to ensure that everything is decent, sanitary, and safe.
So a little bit about the performance to date. You can see in that top chart, this is 2022 year to date, so about the first 9 months of this year. We've provided over $5.3 million in assistance, again, to renters in Richmond County. That's over 1,000 households and nearly 2,400 residents in our community. You can see here it's over 7,600 months of rent and then nearly 1,000 months of electric and, of course, water and gas support as well. But the chart below that shows the cumulative support that's been provided to date, so which is about 18 months. So you can see right now, as of today, we are over $11 million in this sort of support to the residents here in Richmond County, and then you see the breakout there as well. So immense support to really keep these residents who are at risk safely housed and able to avoid eviction.
And again, just real quick to wrap up, I want to highlight the success that we've had as we've been recognized in several different arenas for the model that we've built in partnership with the Magistrate Court under the leadership of Judge Brown and Judge Williamson. Principally, we have a very strong working relationship where we are now in the process of receiving what I call upstream referrals from the court when residents who have been notified of an eviction hearing are filing their answers with the court in advance of their hearing date. We are now at HCD being provided their contact information, and weeks before their scheduled eviction hearing date are able to engage with these residents and to bring as rapid a resolution to their outstanding balances as possible. We're about 3 weeks into this new accelerated response period that has really shown a lot of productivity in both obviously addressing resident need, but as we're also sensitive to helping to thin out the magistrate court calendar. They have been on an accelerated calendar since the lifting of the eviction moratorium with multiple hearings a week for the last year. Our staff is present in all of those meetings to ensure those hearings to ensure those residents are afforded the opportunity to receive services from the program, and the extra mile, as I will call it, that Judge Williamson and Judge Brown have gone to make this a more effective partnership has truly helped sort of lubricate the partnership and get the process flowing so that it's beneficial for the residents and for the landlords involved in it as well. Just so that you know, we have had instances where more so in the past than recently, the residents have found themselves more than 18 months behind, or for some other reason unable to work with the emergency rental assistance program through different eligibility requirements. Maybe they didn't experience a COVID-related hardship. If they were a Social Security recipient and didn't have any decrease in income, they couldn't qualify. We do have, fortunately, resources, just some of which was approved on the agenda today from HUD's Emergency Solutions Grant Program to provide homeless prevention assistance with different criteria. And the combination of those two programs in partnership with United Way have allowed us to meet almost every need we've seen come through. The only residents that we can really say have not been able to be assisted, other than those that are not income eligible, are ones that have landlords who are unwilling to accept the payments on their behalf. And that's really a bridge we can't cross. But we've had very good success, I feel like, in getting uptick in engagement with the community. I mean, the landlords particularly, we didn't know what the response was going to be like when we set out about 1.5 years ago to begin this, but we've had a very good hit rate, I think, and we're seeing more and more successful outcomes every week. We do have some in-person events that we'll be conducting again throughout the close of this year to help us work towards the full expenditure on that $12 million. But we're happy to say that we think we're making good progress with the program at this point, and we'd be happy to entertain any questions that you all may have.
Let's go to Ms. Scott first.
I would just like to thank you for coming in to giving us this excellent report. I'm always concerned about our outside neighbors or potential outside neighbors who didn't get the opportunity to come through your program. I think you all are doing a great job, and thank you so much for coming in.
Mr. Hassan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. I know you said the $12 million is, I think your drop date is December 31.
December 29, yes, sir.
So, what about the others? I think you had a 6 and a 7. I think you said you expended all of the 6, right?
The 6 is gone.
So what, sir?
Yes, sir. The $6 million, the original $6 million, has already been spent. Yes,
okay.
sir.
So
and then that ERA 2, the 7.1 million, about 4.8, I think, is left of that, and that expires in September of 2025.
Okay. Will we get a copy of that, or do we have a copy of what you just presented?
I can make it available to Ms. Bonner, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Guess not. We just take his information, right? Ms. McKnight, you good?
I was just going to say thank you so much for your presentation. Did great.
Receive this information without objection.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
All right. Next on the list.
Item 31, Administrator's Proposed Fiscal Year 2023 Budget Presentation.
Madam Administrator. When is the fair? Oh, it is until Sunday? Okay. Yes, sir. If you want to make that motion, House, well, he told me I can't second. Why are you over there?
They're having technical difficulties with that monitor.
We want to thank you, but we used to seeing you over here on the other side, but.
I understand.
Yeah.
I don't think that's necessary. Mayor Pro Tem, are you ready?
Whatever you are.
Okay, well, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem, thank you for this time, as well as Augusta Commissioners. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to present to you the Interim Administrator's FY 2023 proposed budget. In addition to the printed budget proposal you have recently received, before you is also a copy of the Interim Administrator's transmittal letter. This letter was drafted as a budget overview intended to highlight key areas proposed within the budget, as well as our FY22 accomplishments and key FY23 priorities set by you, the Augusta Commission. If you recall, on June 7th, the Commission approved our FY23 budget calendar, in which it highlighted as today's date in which the proposal would be presented to you. In advance of scheduled work sessions, next week, October 24th through October 28th, has been set aside for any commission work sessions needed. I recommend we schedule Wednesday, 10 a.m. for your first work session, as well as November 1st is already scheduled for your public town meeting, which is the same date as your next as a commission meeting, which is also required to be held at a minimum of 2 weeks prior to the date of adoption on November 15th of the FY23 budget. And then as of January 1st, the FY23 budget will take effect. A year-over-year comparison of our budget shows that in FY22, we had about $920 million, whereas the difference between FY22 and what's being proposed to you today is a little more than $21 million. Some of the revenue highlights I would like for you to take note of include, while we've taken a conservative approach, include some of the following assumptions. A 2% digest growth in ad valorem taxes. We're all well known to what property tax values have not only done for our region, but also the state and the United States as a whole, as well as a 3% increase over our current 22 projections in sales tax. This can highly be attributed to Arts in the Heart has recorded their largest attendance ever, as well as technology conferences that have been held in Augusta, and of course our beloved Masters Tournament. We are proud to report that we have received $900,000 more than what was budgeted in our annual insurance premium tax. We've all seen what those insurance taxes can attribute to, and this is, of course, reflected in this increase, as well as a 4.7% increase in our electricity franchise fees. Now, on the opposite side of that, some decreases in revenue as compared to our current FY22 budget are reflected as such. Fund 541, our waste management fund, as well as 542, our garbage collections fund, required to be balanced by a reduction to operations to account for revenue shortages. Now, this was directly attributed to a stagnant rate in our structure concerning our revenue side and an increase in costs on our expenditure side. We're also experiencing about a $1.1 million streetlight deficit, absent an increased fee structure. And our streetlight fees are expected to increase by 3% estimated year over year, as well as a $2.2 million general fund transfer to cover transit operations. This was not experienced in FY22 because you appropriated those funds from ARP to cover that shortage. And while we appreciate the recent approval concerning our Augusta Fire Department and their capital needs, as stated, their need was not met 100%, so that still continues to be a challenge as far as their fire trucks, fire apparatuses, as well as the necessary equipment needed for them to function. Now, on a high note, some of our expenditure highlights that have been proposed in this year's, in the FY23 budget, include an appropriation of $750,000 from ARP for engineering services, for environmental services demolition program, as well as the creation of a grant writer position to be housed in the administrator's office. This position will be responsible for sourcing grant opportunities as well as writing those and assisting the various departments in administering those grant fund dollars. You've already approved the countywide compensation study through our retention plan part 2 and part 3. And so the procurement process is coming to a close, in which that vendor will come before this body for approval. We're proposing to shift grounds maintenance for the cemeteries to RCCI. This will be completed by transferring all of the RCCI inmate patrol units that are assigned to Parks and Recreation. They will continue to maintain the cemetery solely. As well as the Fire Station 3 is projected to open FY24. However, in FY23, we are needed to hire those individuals so they can go through the proper training and receive the certifications necessary. Now, of some of those actions, many of them have already been have been approved by the commission, which include a $3.4 million increase to salaries by way of the Retention Plan Part 2 and Part 3, as well as $11 million for a new RCCI facility, and $6 million for the construction of a consolidated fleet maintenance facility for both Augusta general funds, as well as enterprise funds and the Augusta Fire Department. Also, $6 million to Craig Halton to renovate for Juvenile Court and Board of Elections, and then $16 million spur expansion at the corporate park. Now, as a recap of our budget, in comparison of FY22 to FY23, the variants show a negative or a decrease, about a 23% decrease in change from special revenue. This is directly attributed to ARP funding for housing and community development, and state and local recovery funds lowered by $41 million. You'll also see that capital projects have decreased by 11%, and this was attributed to capital projects closing out. As well as our enterprise fund increase of 13% was increased due to our water and sewer collections. Are there any questions?
Mr. Dennis Williams, please.
Sorry, push the button.
Mr. Frannon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. I just have a question for the attorney.
Sir.
Can salaries move from the general fund to enterprise fund, but do no functionality with the enterprise fund? Like they don't report to the department head, they don't have any form of task involved in the enterprise fund, but the salaries have been moved from the general fund to the enterprise fund. Is that legal use of funds?
First, I would say, I don't know if that occurred or you're speaking of a fact or asking a generic question. The enterprise fund, funds used for enterprise employees should be, or enterprise funds should be used for the enterprise work. There are some indirect costs. Everything in enterprise fund does not go directly to enterprise fund activities solely. The county does incur indirect costs.
Okay.
Which I believe the finance director has sought to explain to the commission on prior occasions, but I don't know if you have something specific in mind.
I mean, we can talk another day about it, but I think this is a discussion we need to make sure legally we can do. Because I've been told that there's individual employees in different departments that are now, their salaries are now under the enterprise fund in the 2023 budget. And I want to know if that's legally we can do that. And I think that's what is my question. So, thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Clark.
Thank you. Renovation of Horton School, is Board of Elections going to move down to there?
No, sir. It was proposed to use a portion of Craig Halton for storage of their current equipment.
Okay. Second thing, a grant writer going into your office. First of all, a solidarity grant writer for the city of Augusta, I see nothing but good things with that happening because we've needed that for a long time. Do we have a salary in mind for that?
It was recommended through compensation for $80,000 base salary. That does not include benefits.
Okay, well, the benefits is a normal, what, 30% on the back end?
Yes, sir. The total to include benefits is $101,168.
Okay. And the last thing, can you put the schedule for the budget meetings and dates and times back up, please?
The times have not been determined, nor has the date been determined. However, during my presentation, I recommended next week, Wednesday, which should give you enough time to review the items proposed that was given to you today, next week, Wednesday at 10 a.m. That has not been received as a motion.
Thank you much.
Mr. Garrett?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I have a question in regards to the enterprise funds and the 45 million extra that it looks like we're going to use out of there. Where does that 45 million come from?
Commissioner Garrett, I can't speak to that directly. Where are you?
Page 20 of the first section.
Okay.
Yeah, you had it on the slide as well. Yeah, the year over year, right here. I'm just wondering where we're going to generate the additional 45 million within our enterprise.
Yeah, a lot of that is capital projects, more so through water and sewer. That's what I stated to you during the presentation. We can get you a breakout if needed.
Okay. I mean, I did hear when you mentioned that. I'm just trying to wrap my head around because that just seems like a pretty big increase. But yeah, the breakout would be helpful.
Sure.
Mr. Hassan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. Ms. Downs, the presentation that you made there, is it the same thing does it start off in our book, or that's a different, just a teaser you got there with us?
No, sir. What starts at the beginning of your book is the budget transmittal letter.
Okay, I'm just saying, but do we have that in the book that you presented to us?
You do not. However, I have emailed it to you.
Okay. That's what I was trying to follow you, and I realized, okay, maybe I'm looking at the book upside down.
No, sir.
Okay. I will say to the attorney, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Attorney, I don't think you're going to have much choice but to take a look at exactly what the enterprise funds does and what it affects ability in the revenues and what have you. I'm thinking you're going to be able to avoid that because this conversation now, or these questions, I would say, and I think legitimate questions, I think there need to be some resolution around it. It's been going on for about the last 6 months. And I think at some point in time, you're going to have to speak to it. So I would encourage you to, I don't know whether you have the questions that they want, but just the use of it and thinking it keeps coming back. Also about should all these enterprise funds be paying the franchise fees and stuff. There's some misunderstanding or miscommunication around those things. And I think it's time to resolve that issue. And I'm hoping we can do it sooner than later as we go with this budget here. Any response to that, Mr. Attorney? Because that was for you.
Yes, it would be very helpful. It's probably not the time and place, but to get the specific questions that the commissioners have, because the general concepts is not going to answer what must be on someone's mind. So if there's an opportunity for me to meet with the commissioners, and I would suggest that also finance and administrator be present so we can resolve any questions that I had.
Okay, all right, okay. Well, yeah.
Are you good, sir?
Well, yes, for now, go ahead.
Mr. Frandon?
I'd like to make a motion that we have the first workshop on Wednesday, 10 a.m., and I think it would be prudent probably to focus on enterprise funds. I mean, if that's
I'll
will of the body.
Scott?
I was second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Before we do that, Madam Administrator, is there anything else we need to take into consideration, or is that what you needed?
No, that's exactly what I needed. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. All right, can we vote, Ms. Bonner?
Yes, sir, we're voting.
We voted?
Yes, sir, on the motion.
Yes, ma'am. Is that it, Ms. Bonner?
Mayor Pro Tem, I have a point
Mr.
of
Clark,
personal-
if I can get him to vote, and Mr. Johnson, and
All right.
we'll be done.
I'm coming to you, Mr. Garrett. Let's get the voting finished. I forgot that you wanted me to say a personal privilege.
How you voting, Mr. Clark? Okay, thank you. It's unanimous.
All right. You need to read. Hang on a second, Mr. Garrett has something. Go ahead, Mr. Garrett.
Thank you. I'd like to take a point of personal privilege in regards to the way that we voted on item 16. I think just in order for us to be consistent, especially with Commissioner Franum pointing out that we needed to separate those motions for the reconsideration and then do the motion itself, I think just for consistency, I would like to see us take another look at the way that we handled item number 16's motion. I would hate for that to come back as an issue or a legal issue for you, attorney.
Any other comments? Mr. Hassan?
Yeah, I need some clarity on that one, if you don't mind.
Well,
clear.
We combined those motions. We did the reconsideration and a motion all at the same time. And typically that is not the way that we've done it. And, you know, even if you look at Robert's rules and general practices that we've always done, we've never combined motions like that. So I think that just for us to be consistent, we need to do the first motion to reconsider, vote on it, then do the motion that Commissioner Scott put up that we voted on and passed.
Okay, and I agree with that. I do think, but the attorney did clarify to say, because nobody objected, it was able to stand. So no objections. But I don't need to speak for the attorney, but I thought that's what I heard him say when my colleague asked for clarity as to how he's able to do that.
And then that changed a little bit as we moved on into Commissioner Franum. I think better define the question to the attorney.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Mr. Dennis.
We know he will never get, go ahead, I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Dennis Williams.
I need a point of personal privilege after we take a vote on this item.
What item?
We're
We're
finished?
done.
We're finished with it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I just want to take this moment, since the presenter earlier this afternoon kind of involved me in his little presentation, and I think we need to be aware of my reasoning and point of being down there. First of all, I didn't have any problem with the privacy fence in the area. I didn't have any problem with the individuals having to go through the gate in and out. But to have that elevated guardhouse sitting outside of a gate with a privacy fence, I thought I took it personally offensive. So I took it from the point of view that at nighttime, we're gonna lock the gate and lock up all the wild criminals. I didn't like the idea of it. It was distasteful, and I had a problem with the city's logo being on the item. First of all, the commission did not vote on the logo or the sign being used. And just to have that thing up there, and I know what a deer stand is. You go up there, you sit there, and you wait. Throw a little feed out there, the deer come, bang, bang. I felt it to be very distasteful. I was disappointed that we didn't get really much objection from the community because it generates a bad signal to our community. That if you consider that you have a bad neighborhood, you could put one of these, we'll have them all over the city of Augusta eventually. And that's why I was involved in it. And I still think it's distasteful to have an item like that outside of where people live. Yes, crime has been crime over in that area ever since I've been around. And putting up the deer stand, I can't say if it helped it or not, but it gives you a good clear shot of somebody down on the ground. And that's why I was involved with it. And the presenter did not mention that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
All
Mayor
right,
Pro Tem.
we are adjourned. You need to say something?
I was just going to say to the commission rules of procedures is not governed by Robert's rules. The commission has adopted its own rules of procedures. They only default to Robert's rules where particular procedure is not addressed. And as the commission has adopted its own rules, the purpose of the rules is simply to have an orderly meeting. It is not to bind or restrict the commission from operating in a way that the members present at a body can operate. As long as there's clarity, as it was in this case, the motion to consider and the motion itself was discussed and explained before it was voted on, so there was no confusion. There's been no violation of procedures. The commission has adopted its own rules of procedures. Robert rule is only a guidance when the commission has not addressed an area.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
I only brought this up
We
just,
are adjourned.
just so we could be consistent, Attorney.
We are adjourned.